In this video, I'm going to teach you how to teach your dog to down. Good boy! So stay tuned. So when your dog's learning a new behavior, it's important to work on getting that behavior to happen before adding that verbal cue. So that's what we're going to start with first. We're going to first start with luring our dog into the down position. For most dogs, it's easier to start the down position in a sitting position. If this is the case for your dog, you don't want to say sit and then lure to the down because you don't want sit to become your down. Dogs like to build habits, and if you constantly say sit and then down, sit and then down, pretty soon when you say sit, your dog's going to go bloop and go to that down. So instead, what you're going to do is, I need to move Dexter away, you'll lure to that sit instead of saying sit. Okay? So, food in my hand, and I'm going to go straight to his nose and slowly lure down, and as soon as they drop, yes, and then he gets the treat. So nose, and then lure, yes, and then treat. So I'm waiting for those elbows to hit. And when I want to do another, well, he sat up, so that was fine. When I want to do another rep, I can lure to the sit, or I can toss that treat away, or move away to get him to come back up. Food to the nose, lure, and then yes when those elbows hit. If you're working with your dog and they do a quick jump up at the end, so you lure to the down and they pop back up, that's okay because we're just working on the down, not the stay. However, if you want to encourage staying in the down, you can treat again. So down here, I'll treat, and then I'll treat, and then I treat, and then I'd release with my release word, which for me is okay. And that's for them to get up. There's more information on that in our stay video. So food to the nose, slowly lure, yes, and then treat. If your dog does anything like paw, like Dexter did, just ignore that. We'll work on fading that. Don't tell them no, because we don't want to give them negative feedback, because then they just don't want to try things. We want them to feel comfortable about trying. They just won't get rewarded for that other behavior. So food to the nose, and then lure and treat. Once you can get 5 reps, and it happens pretty quickly like Dexter, then we go to the next stage. On the other hand, if you're working and it's kind of going slow and he's kind of hesitant, keep working at that stage. You don't want to make things harder before the dog truly understands what it is that he's doing. If you're going to start training your dog and you want to start in your standing position, it's really important that you're prepared to go all the way down. So we're going to take that food to his nose, and we're going to get a little bit of an exercise, and you're going to lure straight down, and then yes and treat. And what you'll notice is I don't want to block him. So I'm kind of to the side of him instead of standing straight in front of him. He thinks we're doing a hand target. So we're going to lure to the down. There it is. Good boy, reinforce him for staying down. Put it between his toes. Helps keep him in that down position. Now, but I am going to reinforce the release word. Okay. Good boy. Good job. If our dog struggles with the down cue, meaning we're trying to lure and they just can't quite get it, that butt keeps popping up or they stand up, then what we're going to do is we're going to shape the behavior, which means we're going to reinforce partial behavior. So if the dog head ducks, well, yes and treat. Head ducks a little more, yes and treat. The biggest thing for me at that stage is to make sure that when I'm luring, that butt is still on the ground. So if that butt pops, then I want to ask for even less. That's a great reminder why I don't attach my cues until I really get a reliable behavior. Because I don't want down to mean and popping up that butt, and popping up the butt. If your dog's in the sit position and you lure down and he pops up, a couple things. One, you might be dragging your hand out like this. So you want to make sure that you go straight down. So we're going from his chin straight down to his toes. Some videos will talk about going down and then to an L, but what tends to happen is you do that and the dog will pop their butt. Of course, Dexter won't, but the dog will pop their butt. We don't want to pop that butt. So instead, from his nose down to his toes. So we're going to go slow, and then yes and treat. And as always, with most dogs, they're going to go much slower. Let me see if I can demonstrate a partial where I'm going to kind of stop Dexter from going all the way down just to kind of show you. Again, I'm just stopping Dexter to pretend that he's not going down. So you go, yes, and then treat. He ducks his head, yes, and then treat. and doesn't go all the way down. So what's happening is you're going to kind of shape your dog. If they're not being successful, if they're just not getting it, you're like, oh, he's not doing the down, I can't give him the reward. Your dog's going to be like, I'm out. This is too hard. I'm not having any fun, and I'm going somewhere else. And then you're going to get frustrated. And for some dogs, this is actually can be a really challenging behavior. So we might think of down as an easy behavior for our dogs, but some dogs really have a hard time. So once your dog is following the food lure quickly and easily, then the next step is to actually teach your dog to follow your hand gesture without the food in your hand. And this is always an important step so that we can eventually fade the food and not use the food all the time. At the beginning stages, we're still going to be rewarding our dog, but we want to teach him to follow lures and gestures even if there's not a food treat showing. If you don't do this step, we tend to get the dogs that are like, I don't see food, I'm not going to do it. Because what they've learned is they only get food when they see it. So what we're going to teach our dog is, I'm going to lure with no food in my hand, but a reward still is coming. So that's teaching our dogs that rewards are always available. Later we'll decide on when they get that reward, but this is an important step. So step 1, getting your dog to the down position with food in your hand. Step 2, once they're doing that at least 5 for 5, then we're going to have them follow the gesture with no food in our hand, still say yes, and then get food from our pocket or on the counter or wherever you have it. We're still not using that word yet. We want to get that behavior nice and reliable still. So no food in the hand, yes! And then lure, yes, and then treat. And again, we can reinforce multiple times for staying down here. So in that sit position, lure, yes, and then treat. And you're going to do this 5 for 5 again. So you're going to do 5 reps just like that. If they're successful, then we go to the next step. If they're not successful on those 5 reps, we want to keep working at that level. Or if it's really, really hard, then we want to go back to another level. I do want to note too, when you're working with your dog, always take into account the floor. Traction is always a good idea for your dogs. If you have wood floors or tile floors, please use something like a yoga mat or a shower mat that has the rubber grippers so they have something to hang on to. Once our dog's able to follow the empty hand and do that successfully, the next thing is we get to tell them what they're doing. When it is time to attach your verbal cue, it's important to think about what cue you want to use. For example, for me, when I tell Dexter off, that means 4 feet on the floor. When I tell Dexter down, that means to lie down. So we're going to say our cue first and then do the gesture. Down, yes, and then treat. No treat, down, yes, and then treat. So that's your third step. You're going to work again 5 for 5. So our next step is to work at slowly decreasing the luring. So instead of taking my hand and going all the way to the ground, I want to start slowly going, okay, well, I'm not going to touch the ground. Let's go 4 inches off the ground. Let's go 6 inches off the ground. Let's go, I'm going to slowly do that. I'm not all of a sudden going to go no lures altogether, because then my dog's probably going to be confused. Instead, I'm going to gradually do that. And if my dog does seem confused, instead of repeating my down cue, I'm going to repeat the gesture, because I only want to say my verbal cues once. So we're going to do the word, empty hand, and we'll go all the way to the ground. So if I look at 5 reps, I usually start with that first rep at being easy and then make it harder. We're going to make sure he has plenty of space for his feet. I'm going to say his verbal and go all the way to the ground. Down, and then yes, and then I'll give him his treat. That yes tells him he's done it right. This is why you're getting that reward. Now, instead of going all the way to the ground, I'll go about as high as my shin. So down, yes. And I want to wait for those elbows to hit all the way. So as you saw kind of with Dexter, he kind of got stopped kind of halfway, like, wait, am I supposed to go all the way down to the ground? And if he does, yes and treat. Down, yes. Down, yes. Down, yes. So can you see I didn't go all the way? Until eventually you fade that gesture altogether. So no gestures, down, yes. Now when you start fading your gestures, meaning you're not touching that ground, you're kind of halfway, your dog might get a little confused and kind of look at you like, what am I doing? Give him a second. Don't repeat your word. Don't repeat the gesture. Just smile at him like, and see if that mind goes, oh, right, this is what I was doing, and then they do it. So it's always a good idea to kind of start them off at doing the behavior they can do successfully. So whether that's luring all the way to the ground, kind of getting a few reps like that going, then lessening your lure. So they're like, again, what was I doing? What was I doing? These exercises are likely going to take multiple days. You don't want to do too many at a time. I tend to put a handful of food in my pocket, and when that's gone, we're done. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Click the bell icon and you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Remember to pause and enjoy life. And we'll see you in the next video.
Let me tell you a story about the baddest dog there ever was. Sneaking food from the fridge, tearing up the garbage. He's a goofy old Dexter the dog. He's a bad Dexter the dog. The baddest pup that there